You need a theory of change.
It gets people involved in politics.
Has anyone had any problems with
How are you going to bring in?
I wanted to talk about good activism and bad activism, and not really focus so much on the tools by which they are done. I'll offer up the 38 degrees definition of good activism. Activism is about people coming together, pooling their resources, their ideas to make change happen. And what matters is impact. Two kinds of impact. The first one is probably the one that more of us think of more of the time, and that's impact in the world, changing things, changing people's minds, stopping bad stuff happening, making good stuff happen. The second kind of impact we think is equally important, and that's impact on the people who are involved. But the experience of getting involved means that you have more skills and more inclination to get involved in the future as a result of taking part. So you leave a legacy of more people getting involved. That's to me what good activism is. Bad activism is activism that doesn't do those two things. As so many people have already said, whether the tools by which you do that are secondary, and really they should be judged in terms of those impacts. Was it good? Did it make change happen? Did it get more people involved? Did the people who got involved have a good experience, an empowering experience that means they'll get more involved in future? Now, I think the first thing to take on in the kind of critique of digital activism is that, does it always have to be bad? Because that is that kind of debate's out there. Now, I'd argue that the 38 Degrees campaign to stop the government selling off the forests worked by both those criteria. Over 500,000 people got involved in that campaign. It was driven initially by thousands of 38 Degrees members pooling their ideas and analysis to decide to launch the campaign, to work out what our demands would be. Over 500,000 people signed the petition. People engaged their MPs in their tens of thousands, personalising their emails, contacting them both before a key vote took place and asking them how to vote, and then contacting them again afterwards, challenging them on how they had voted or congratulating them on how they voted. The feedback from MPs, overwhelmingly that was transformative, that it changed things, that MPs felt under pressure, that their constituents were engaging them and holding them to account in a way that they'd just not seen on that scale before. People also pooled their resources financially to fund adverts for the campaign and to publicise the message unmediated in national newspapers. And they worked together to make stuff happen offline. They came up with designs for posters which we then shared and people could download so that they were popping up in woods all over the country. They organised walks and rallies with their local MPs to put pressure on them. Last weekend, people organised another round of walks in the woods, celebration walks, where hundreds of people in locations all over England just had a walk together to talk about why they'd won, why it was important, why it was great. It had an impact in the world. We weren't the only people working on forests, but we were definitely alongside the local groups that were already there, alongside the celebrities that waded in and the NGOs that got on board towards the end. We were instrumental in stopping a bad government policy. I thought that I'd read to you some of the messages we got from the activists who were involved afterwards to talk about that second really important kind of impact. Judith, the first time in my life I feel my protest, along with so many others, has been heard and acted upon. Ian, thank you for empowering so many people. Julie, it's great news and proves that if people unite for these causes, they can be won. I hope in the future this continues. The possibilities are endless. Well done, everyone. We got thousands and thousands of messages like that. And what they showed was not just people pleased it had worked, but people newly convinced and aware of their own capacity to influence events and feeling part of a community. Now, that happened online. It doesn't just happen online, but it can, and that's what's exciting. So I think that's the first part of the argument, but we need to be really confident about as people who use digital tools to organise activism, that it can be good. The second thing I think, though, that we need to think about is the ways in which digital tools offer particular exciting possibilities that mean we should be thinking particularly about when they are appropriate. And I thought I'd offer just a few. The first is it lowers entry costs. It means more people can get involved, not just in participating in a campaign, but in starting it up. That's exciting in two ways. The first is it just means more stuff is happening, more things are springing up. The second is it's challenged. It lays down a challenge to existing players to be more responsive, to engage with their memberships, to listen to them. Because if they don't, their membership will start doing stuff anyway. And and they've got competitors on their hands. That stirs things up. It makes people more accountable. Secondly, digital tools, I think we are seeing at the moment, are enabling existing activists to talk beyond the activist bubble, to spread the word with their non-activist friends via Facebook, by pressing forward on email, in a way that means you're sharing your political identity beyond just your political contacts. I think lots of us who are activists have had that experience of having our activist friends and our normal friends. That breaks down online, and that's really important, because for progressive social campaigning, our roots were in struggles, in campaigns that grew out of existing broader social relationships, the workplace, the community. And the existence of digital tools allows that to happen in a modern society where we don't all know our neighbours and we don't all work in factories, and that is really exciting. Thirdly, there's something about speed and scale of movement that you can accomplish online, which at its simplest is about the fact you can get an email out really quickly, but at its most exciting is about being able, as 38 Degrees does, and an increasing number of organisations do, to take decisions collectively really quickly, to pool ideas, resources, analysis, and reach conclusions in a time frame that means you can keep up with the news rather than having to rely on more bureaucratic processes and posting stuff out and compositing motions, which means you can't keep up. I think the final thing, though, is that one of the wonderful things about all these tools is they're so complementary to other older, more traditional forms of activism. So we saw with the Save Our Forests campaign the way that stuff that was happening offline and stuff that was happening online was so easy to complement each other, and the presence of a big online petition was something that we could use to stoke and seed and support offline groups organising rallies in their local areas. So what I'm really saying is I think we need to be really confident about saying, firstly, that it's about being good activists and doing good activism, not about the tools. And it's perfectly possible to do good activism online. But secondly, that there are particular exciting things that online activism can offer and bring to the table, which everyone, wherever we are in our organisation, needs to be sharing with their colleagues so that they understand the potential and they're looking to the tools to work in that way. So what I'd really hope that means is in future we can move beyond this debate about clicktivism or not, which I think often is one of the opportunities which that online organising can give is it opens up the field. It allows more people to get involved, more people to take part, and often the reaction to that, I think, has an element of either elitism or it's kind of Marxist-Leninist equivalent of vanguardism. But these are people who don't know stuff, and what they're piling in, and they have ideas that aren't our ideas and are disrupting how we operate. I think that if we can move beyond the clicktivism, slacktivism debate, we could be focusing on some much more important and significant questions, which I would really love there to be debates on at future ECFs. And the kind of debate titles I think would be great to be talking about in the future are, what does it mean for our engagement with decision makers that more people can get involved with the process and can be contacting their decision maker? If we don't accept the kind of elitist premise that you have to earn the right to contact your decision maker by writing original prose with a quill pen or whatever, what is the way in which we engage with MPs, and how do we support that, or other decision makers? How does a new digitally enabled mass participation activism interact with existing institutions more generally, and with established NGOs? What does collaboration between NGOs look like in a digitally enabled sphere? How do we, if we think that digital tools have enabled activists to catch up with the 24-hour news cycle, how do NGOs catch up with the 24-hour news cycle as well, particularly in a collaborative space where traditionally coalitions take months to coalesce, and intricate negotiations about positions of logos and shared platforms? How does all that stuff catch up? How do we move from those kind of coalitions to flotillas that can keep up with events? So that's really my pitch. And there were some specific things raised about 38 Degrees, which I'd love to chat about in the kind of Q&A bit as well. But I really think we need to move beyond the clicktivism debate and focus on the more concrete, more specific, but I think more fertile questions about how different forms of activism can coalesce and cooperate, and how we can therefore be more effective in actually ensuring that the activism, online or offline, is good activism. Yeah. you.